Hi, I'm Brian from Northwest Bronco. Welcome back to the channel. It's been a couple months since I put out a video because I had a lot of things going on over the last few months with the kids, family, work, and also I had lifted the Bronco. Now the system I ended up using was simply a bolt-on coilover system from Eibach, and it's the Pro Truck 2.0, and they have an HD version and a standard version, with HD being the heavy duty and standard being standard. If I'm going to tell you which one I chose and possibly a mistake that I made, which I'm going to tell you about at the end of this video. Now, if you were to get the standard version of the Pro Truck series, that's basically going to be for a factory Bronco with not a whole lot strapped onto it. You can have a couple little things, but not a lot. But if you have an overland rig that has like a custom bumper, a heavy duty rear bumper, heavy step boards, a tent, fuel, all those doodads, and basically you're going to want to go with the heavy duty. But I'm going to tell you about how much weight you're going to truly need in a real life application to make the heavy duty springs work. Now, if you just want a better riding Bronco, I'd stick with the standard system. But if you have any kind of extra weight, and on the website actually says you need 150 pounds in the front of extra gear and extra weight, and 500 pounds in the rear of extra weight to make that suspension ride properly. Now, when it comes to how much lift you can actually get out of the system, I actually have the numbers written down because I knew I wouldn't remember them. So you're going to get in the front about between 0 and 2.2 inches in the front of lift. In the rear, you're going to get 1.3 to 2.7 inches of lift in the rear. But they are adjustable, so you can actually adjust these shocks in your garage. Now, I ended up getting about 2.25 inches of lift on mine, and I didn't max them out or anything like that. Mine are actually adjusted about probably a little over halfway up. So I do have some room to work if I were to go 37s, which is the plan for this Bronco, is to go 37s. When I do, then I'm probably going to bring it up another 1/4 inch. That would give me a grand total of about 2.5 inches, maybe even closer to 3, hopefully, fingers crossed. And that's going to give me about the maximum amount of height I can get out of this thing with that system. So there are some other things you need to know before you just lift your Bronco 2.5 inches. There are some other things that need to be done. Some things are bonus things and some things are just needed. And I'm going to tell you what those things are right now. Now I'm going to break out my piece of paper knowledge because I'm out here in the middle of nowhere and I can't remember everything. So I wrote some things down to make sure I tell you everything you need to know. So the coilover system I went with from Eibach is actually the heavy duty system. And I got it because I thought I had enough weight on here to make that suspension ride nicely. I'm going to tell you at the end of this video that maybe it wasn't the best idea, but that's what I went with, and that was about 1,800 bucks. The next thing I bought was a set of upper control arms. Now those can go anywhere between $400 and 800 bucks. They're kind of expensive, but I put them on just to help with being able to align the vehicle a little bit easier, and plus it prepares me for going any higher, or if I put 37s on here, it's just going to make things a little bit easier on the shop. So I ended up going with the Zone upper control arms. Those were in budget friendly range of about 450 bucks, something like that, which wasn't too bad considering some of them were like $800. Another debatable thing I did that I probably didn't have to do, but I did anyway, was I dropped the front diff. It's just a cheap bracket. It's like 40 bucks. You buy the bracket, drop your front diff. And I did have a question from somebody asking, did I have to modify my skid plate at all on the front to handle that diff drop? And the answer is nope. So another thing that I did do that you should probably do also is get an adjustable rear track bar and also a bracket to level out your track bar on the back. That's really going to help stabilize the vehicle, and it makes it drive quite a bit better because I didn't have that on when I first lifted it and the Bronco drove a little weird. So I went ahead and put that bracket on, which I think it lifts up the track bar, because if your track bar is like this, that's not good. You want it to be as level as possible, but if you lift your Bronco, it's going to go like this, and you need to get that back up. So it's a bracket you buy, and I'll have a link to that down below, that brings up your track bar and levels it. And then I got an adjustable bar as just kind of a bonus. So another thing I did that I didn't really have to do, but I did it because the Bronco was already torn apart at the shop, is I had them install the rough country heavy duty tie rods in the front. Just because I'm not a mechanic, I don't do a whole lot of repairs out in the field, especially if I break a tie rod. That's going to be a tow job for me. So I figured might as well just throw them on while the thing's torn apart and get over with. So I've been happy with them, haven't had any issues with them. I run a couple of rough country things on my rig. I know the reputation is a little sketchy in the community, but I've never had a problem with their products, and they're affordable, and I buy them. So let's talk a little bit about the performance that I've gotten over the last couple of months with this setup. Now, just to remind you guys, I did get the Pro Truck 2.0 HD. So I got the heavy duty springs, which are supposed to have 150 pounds in the front of extra weight and 500 pounds in the rear. I do not have 150 pounds in the front, and I do not carry quite 500 pounds in the rear, which is where I kind of made a mistake. Now, coming up here real shortly at the end of this video, I'm going to tell you why that was a mistake and what you should do if you're planning on getting the system. But first, let's talk about the performance that I have gotten. Now, this isn't a sports car, it is a Bronco, plus it has all this shit bolted on it. But I can tell you that your corner's better with a factory suspension, but you get a much smoother ride with this suspension when it comes to feeling all the bumps, like speed bumps, little bumps in the road, those little ticky-tacky things you come across on the street. You definitely gets rid of all those, so it rides nice and smooth. But it doesn't handle quite as well around corners because there's a little bit of sway, a little more sway, because it's not quite as stiff as the factory Bilsteins. But like I said, it's not a sports car, so you'll get used to it. Now, when it comes to driving on long gravel roads, like with washboard and things like that, this is definitely a kick-ass system. It's just, you can drive as fast as you want. The washboard you hardly even notice it. It absorbs all those little bumps on those long gravel washboardy roads. And on the trail, just on dirt roads where you're just going through some rock gardens and things like that, it definitely does smooth out your ride. You know, it just makes everything a little more squishy. It's not quite as stiff where you're just getting jarred around all the time, like with the factory Sasquatch suspension. Definitely an improvement in ride there. Now, when it comes to high-speed driving in sand, like sandy, long, straight roads where there's no rock gardens, it's just sand, this thing is a ton of fun now. Before, especially with the winch on the front and all this extra weight, with the factory Sasquatch system, I would bottom out a lot. Like if you were like, whoa, and you go to hit a whoop really hard, you would bottom out. With this setup, it might be because I have the heavy-duty setup, I have never once bottomed out, and I like to do a lot of fast driving in Baja mode out on those long roads in the sandy conditions. But when I do come across a whoop that I don't have time to slow down for, this absorbs everything. There is no bottoming out unless you're abusively driving your Bronco. You probably will not bottom out. I never have. And it just makes those whoops be a lot more fun instead of terrifying. So really, really enjoy high-speed desert driving with this setup. It's just like riding a stick of butter. Now, the problem I'm having is I'm having a lot of back spring. So I don't notice it off-road and on gravel because I'm not really paying attention. But when I'm looking for a smooth ride on the road, that's where it bugs me, because when I go over a bump, the rear end is springy. It goes boing, 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 and that just bugs the shit out of me. And it's not Eibach's fault. It's my fault for buying the wrong springs because I don't carry quite enough weight to meet that 500-pound standard. But I thought I would be okay. So I killed about 2.5 million butterflies heading out here to the desert. But more importantly, let's talk about how much weight we have in the front here. I've got a standard winch. It's about 9,000 pound winch. Not very big, probably weighs, maybe 60 pounds. Plus I've got the rough country mounting system up here, the high winch mount, and that probably weighs, not very much, probably another 50. So I'm looking at about 110 pounds in the front, not meeting that minimum 150 pounds to make this suspension ride right on the front. So I'm too light in the front for those springs as well. So from this real life review, actually going out and using this stuff for a couple of months and telling you honest mistakes that I made, the big question is, do you go a standard spring or heavy duty spring? I would definitely go HD, heavy duty, only if you meet those minimum weight restrictions. You have to carry at least that much weight, otherwise you're going to get a real boingy rear end. The front end seems okay, but the rear is a little boingy. So what I'm going to do is probably in about 6 months or to a year, I'm going to change out the springs to the lighter springs, the standard springs, and do another review to let you know my thoughts on the standard springs carrying the amount of weight that most overlanders do. So hopefully this video helped you out. If it did, maybe give it a like, subscribe, more Bronco content. See you next time.